are you?
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Very
So
nice.
we cannot see you. I want to see your beautiful place.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Hi.
Wow, you are looking so pretty.
Thank you.
So yes, so are you enjoying the event? So this is the day to Global Virtual Summit.
Yes, I've been able to catch some of the sessions and very interesting topics for sure.
Oh, thank you. So thank you so much. So welcome on stage, Becky Farone. So before you start your presentation, so I would like to introduce you to the audience.
Great.
So Becky Farron boasts over 30 years in the tech industry, often breaking barriers as the only woman in the room. Her determination was sparked by an unconventional upbringing in Vermont, where she is frequently asked, why can't a girl do that? She has successfully led multidisciplinary teams for major companies like Microsoft, Nike, and Starbucks HQ, starting her career in the original Outlook team at Microsoft. In 2021, driven by a desire to improve work environments, Becky transitioned to career coaching and founded Fireworks Coaching after earning credentials from the Active Training Institute and the International Coaching Federation. With a BA in Art History and American Studies from Tufts and a master's degree in Information Design and Business from Carnegie Mellon, Becky will share strategies to build confidence and ensure your voice is heard in her session. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yes, the stage is all yours. Good luck, Becky.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And then the slides are where? The previous person, you ran the slides for him, I think?
Yeah, have you shared your presentation to us?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
1 second, let me check.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, you can start. We will
Okay.
press, yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
If I've got them here, if I can share them myself or
Yes,
I
if
can.
you, yeah, if you know that, you can do from your side. Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can. Give me 1 second. I'm usually pretty quick with this stuff. Just doing the settings. Okay, I think we lost myself for a second there, but I'm back.
Yes.
Okay, can you see the screen I'm trying to share? Let me try that again.
No, no. We are sharing from outside. Yes.
Okay.
1 second.
And if you have them, if that's easier, that's great too. I wish I knew some jokes.
Once again, I know there will be some technical glitches, right? Even though we
That's
have
okay.
worked, yeah, sometime. The team is working on that. We have found your PPT. Yeah. So,
Just a few technical difficulties in case people are tuning in right now.
we are almost done.
Okay.
Yes, can you see it now?
I can see somebody's desktop. I can't see my slides though. There we go.
Yes, you can start.
Oh, great. Okay, great. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for the great introduction, Melinda. It's really such a joy and honor to be here as part of this great conference with all these fantastic speakers. So I'm going to be talking about today the courage to speak up, how women can find their voice, and we'll have some great tips for people along the way. So you can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. Is anyone running this? Do I do it? Oh, okay. If you can just go to the next slide. There we go. Okay, so as I said, I'm Becky. Just a little bit about me before we start. I'm actually just outside of Portland, Oregon. That's the Mount Hood there. And in my introduction, you probably heard some of these things already, but I come from a lot of corporate experience, which is what I get very inspired to help others with. I've worked at some of these companies that you can see the logos there, right there. And my particular niche is helping professional women over 40 and some men deciding to stay or leave distressing work, and then how to decide what's next. So you can go to the next slide. Great. So I've talked about a little bit about what I do here, but I put some quotes here, some testimonials, because what I really do is I help people trust themselves and trust their voice. And that has everything to do with what I'll be presenting just beyond this slide here. And I like to share a little story. The reason I do this is because there was a point in my life when I really needed a coach, really needed someone to help me articulate what I wanted and what I needed, and I didn't have that available. I had just turned 30, and in 1 month, I quit my job at Microsoft and had this big birthday, broke up with someone, and then moved. And it was a lot of stress. And I decided I just had to go to grad school. And 5 years later, and $80,000, I did go to grad school, and I'm so happy to have a degree from a good school, Carnegie Mellon University. But it didn't actually solve the real overhanging question of what do I really want to be doing next. And so I think I didn't quite believe myself in earlier in the process, and that's what I like to help people do now. And I help them do that with small, safe, informed decisions along the way. So go ahead and please do the next slide. Yeah, the one with the blue. There we go. Okay, so how did I get here? Turns out earlier in my life, in my career, I didn't seem to have much problem speaking up. Maybe I didn't know that I should have, but I ended up moving to Seattle after my first real job. And I got both my apartment and my job at Microsoft just by asking, just by speaking up. And it was just very interesting. This I like to tell people this, that you can just ask for things. So here's an example. I went to look for an apartment in Seattle. The person I was talking to happened to work at Microsoft in college recruiting. I brought my resume, and that's how I got into Microsoft. And other steps in my career happened in a similar way there at Microsoft. I just kept asking and talking to people, and I eventually ended up on the original Microsoft Outlook team, and with a non-technical background. So this has become kind of my life motto to a certain extent. But it doesn't always work. You have to expect it not always to work. So let's talk about that next. Go ahead and for the next slide, please. Next slide. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So this is a photo. It might be hard to tell on your screen. This is a photo of a broken toilet. So that might be kind of strange. But I started to learn along the way in my mid-20s. Not everybody liked it when you spoke up, we being me as a woman. And the story here is I was renting an apartment, and the landlord person renting it to me was an older gentleman, and he told me the apartment was ready. And when I went to go and look, I found something that looked very much like this. And when I went to tell him about it, he was like, seemed to be very shocked that I spoke up, and was like, how dare you kind of expression. So this can happen. This is not uncommon that when, as a woman, you try to speak up about things, even as obvious as there's a broken toilet and you lied. So whether you're shy or not, I'm not particularly shy, but speaking up can have its challenges. So let's talk about why and what to do about it. The next slide, please. One more slide. Wonderful. Okay. Oh, too many. Go back. Great. Okay. So it looks like there's some funny formatting things. That is okay. So the core thesis of this presentation is this, that it's really self-authority is what gives you the courage to speak up, and not just at work and not just out loud. There's quite a bit of research out there about women in the workplace and in other places and what happens when you do and don't speak up. And so I'm not going to share a ton of that, just a couple things to start off with. So there's a study from McKinsey, the big consulting company, that talked about how others get credit for women's ideas 1.5 times more often than that's happening for men. So that's just one thing to kind of start us off here. And I will have some tools on how to make that number at least decrease. But the reason this is the core belief is because once you trust that what you do, what you say, what you think, and how you act is fine with you, this gives you the freedom and security to speak up and really have the career and the life that you want. It might sound easier said than done, so we'll explore that. But this is a big reason why just having that inner strength and confidence gives us the outer ability to speak up in the situations where we'd like to. So go ahead and please advance to the next slide. Okay, so what is self-authority? The slide shows some very short versions of what that is, but I'm actually going to talk about what it's not, because I think that gets more insidious. So most, if not all, of the lack of self-authority really becomes from how women have been socialized, going back eons and eons. And so here's some examples. When your automatic internal thoughts keep you small. Oh, I'll never be able to get a job like that person, is an example. Maybe you're afraid to argue a point in a meeting because you feel like you don't know enough, or you think someone might criticize you. Like, oh boy, Richard seems to know so much, I shouldn't say anything. Maybe you're constantly worried about your appearance, or even worse, all the eating orders that are out there in the world. So that is really internalized ways of keeping women small. Maybe you feel completely gaslit by leaders at work and blaming yourself for their saying you missed something, and you didn't. Somebody else is trying to cover themselves. So a little quick story. It's more the outcome of the story. As I mentioned in the introduction, also said that I've been working in the tech industry for really most of my career. And I got very used to the corporate way of life. You have reviews, you have leaders, and you generally do what the leaders want you to do. And I was working in a particular situation that was extremely chaotic. And I found myself just wanting to ask a lot of questions because it just wasn't clear at all at that point what my job was. The person who had hired me into it had left. A lot of people were leaving and this and that. And so as a result of me asking questions, and one of them being, maybe I can try a different group in the company, I had a leader get very threatened by that and want to put me on a performance improvement plan. And I decided at some point in this process that I just wasn't no longer going to go along with the things that had been suggested or said about me, because I knew they weren't true. A lot of things, I was part of the rationale that I heard from this leader. And I really had a very clear moment one day where I said, I'm not playing this game for 1 minute longer. And I was able to get out of the company in a safe way. So ever since then, that was the last time I blindly trusted that leaders have a really clear plan. Maybe next time I wouldn't ask so many questions about it. I don't know about that, but I no longer believe that others automatically know more than I do. So that's a form of self-authority. So go ahead and please advance the slide. Okay, so here's the problem. There's always been a pretty good reason why women are afraid to speak up. Really, from the beginning of humans, women have often been like property, or didn't have any power or resources, or just we tend to be so much smaller than men. So it has been scary to speak up because there could be very real, and still are, very real ramifications. So it has become ingrained in our brains over generations to be nice or else. So even today, on a more extreme level than speaking up at work, many women fear for their lives at home with their partners if they say or do the wrong thing. Women can be very dangerous to be a woman and be speaking up. So we also, just kind of coming back to the work situation, because that's generally what we're here to talk about. But here's some examples of what you might be worried about if you do speak up in a corporate setting. Maybe you're being criticized. Women can often be called bossy or bitch. You might feel like others think you're not qualified. People might think you're overbearing, or you're just too much. How many of you have heard that? Just too much. And if you want to throw some of your examples of what you've heard or experienced in the chat, now would be a good time to do that. So it can be really hard to tell what's real or imagined fear in these cases. We just become so inhibited internally and externally. So go ahead and change the slide. So here's what happens, and it's actually quite complicated. So we've already talked about some of these things: socialization, physical danger, imposter syndrome, financial imbalance. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But even the screenshot here is from a book of fiction. She understood right away that when a woman is not in her place, men can get very angry. So these things are reinforced over and over again. But I want to talk about the financial one just for a second. When I did go to grad school at Carnegie Mellon, that 5 years and $80,000 experiment, I took a class from a woman named Linda Babcock, who has also written several books on women in negotiating. And she was doing some research at CMU, Carnegie Mellon. So some interesting numbers from her book. This is from the early 2000s, keep that in mind, but I don't think things have changed that much. She discovered that MBAs who had recently graduated from Carnegie Mellon, the males actually had salaries at that point, which were 7.6% higher than the women. And the reason for that primarily came down to the fact that women didn't negotiate in the same way as men. In fact, the numbers here showed that only 7% of the women had negotiated, but 57%, or almost 8 times, had negotiated and ended up with a higher salary. So there's a lot of research out there. I really recommend the books. I have it in my resource slide here. But there's a lot of assumptions that nice girls don't ask unless it's on behalf of somebody else. So there's definitely a double-edged sword here. We're supposed to advocate for ourselves. And when you do, people don't like it. Not all the time, often enough. So go ahead and please do the next slide. So I want to talk about some other research and another factor for why it can be hard for women to speak up, and that is called the double bind. So a number of sociologists did this research and found that, sorry, I'm on my wrong notes. So what happened is from, again, back to early societies, when strangers would come to a different community, just from a very early time, we were always assessing strangers on these two items here. Is this person warm? Can I trust them? Are they nice? Is this person competent? Are they intelligent and effective? Turns out higher status humans, generally men, were given the benefit of the doubt pretty early on with both of those things. But that wasn't true with women in lower status, typically marginalized, or people of color. What would happen is you're often allowed to be one or the other, nice or competent. Okay, so maybe you've overcome that hurdle and people think you're both nice and competent. But there's only 1 to 2 behaviors that others think are cold or not nice that could take away their belief that you're warm. So, but once you're competent, it usually takes more than just a few, but the nice part, that can be taken away very quickly. So women need to prove yourself right out of the gate when meeting people at work or otherwise. So it's really adding to this challenge of even wanting to speak up because of some of these dynamics. So go ahead and the next one, please. So this is what it looks like. So the items in black are things that many women, myself included, have literally heard other people telling us. The items in white are things that we say to ourselves. And that's pretty important here because we're now socialized to keep ourselves in check. And then we also, not only that, but we tend to fear the worst. So there's something called the negativity bias, which is a cognitive bias that causes people to pay more attention to negative information than positive. So you know what else this means? We actually do this to ourselves. So we imagine all these things that someone else might say to us if we speak up, and so we don't. So you got to kind of keep on the lookout here for what are you actually telling yourself in these situations when you want to have the courage to speak up. And really what other people say, going back to the items in black, have far more to do with what they think about themselves and their own fears than you. Always examples and exceptions, but that's a dynamic that can be going on as well. So let's get to what we can do about it. So go ahead and please advance to the next slide. Next slide, please. Wonderful, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go through each one of these strategies in more detail, but this is the summary of your toolkit. So we have the first one, befriend your inner critic. The second is drop the good girl programming. Third is communicate with competence and warmth with some caveats. That goes back to the double bind. Fourth is stay connected. And the fifth is radically accept the outcomes. So we're going to go to the first strategy next. If you can go to the next slide, please. One more slide. Wonderful, thanks. Okay, so we're probably all familiar with the voices in our head that don't always say very nice things. Some people call them inner critics. Some people call them your saboteurs. I'm trained in something called positive intelligence, which is a book and a framework around how we can actually identify these saboteurs or inner critics, what the different types are, and how do you work with them so that they don't have full control of your mind. Basically, you want to decide who to listen to. So we all have the judge. I like to call mine Miranda Priestley from the movie Devil Wears Prada, if you've seen that. So your judge and all the other accomplice saboteurs, they're basically fear. So these saboteurs are coming out of our childhood experiences when we had very little power over our lives. So this way of thinking was developed at a certain point in our life to keep us safe, and we don't tend to need them anymore. So we have to figure out now, why are they in our lives, and also realize they're not you. So a good place to start, as the first bullet says, is understanding like they're not you. Even if you just say, "Oh, there's my judge again, telling me that just because I didn't go to the gym for 3 days, I'm going to die sooner." That's not true. Hello, judge. But then you want to, oh yes, I test. Did I say the wrong movie? Devil Wears Prada. Yeah. So I'm distracted because that was a great movie. So back to this judge telling you that you're going to die young if you don't go to the gym. What you want to also pay attention to is, what do they want you to know about, and be careful of in any part of your life, whether it's personal care or, when most importantly, when you try to speak up. How can you make them feel safe enough for you to say what you want? And sometimes just taking a few minutes, maybe journaling, and maybe you had a previous bad experience and you think it's going to be the same over and over again. That's not necessarily true. One reason is because you're right here listening to some ideas about how to get more comfortable speaking up. So, all right, strategy 2. Next slide, please. So I alluded to this one earlier. So this is trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. And the whole concept is, when we're in school, and we're students, and this probably happens to male students as well, but you're used to treating professors and teachers as the authority, and that can continue when you're out in the work world. My boss must know everything. The CEO must know everything. That's not necessarily true. So part of dropping the good girl programming is deciding for yourself that you do know enough, or you do know what good leadership is. Just say you're promoted into a new position and you're like, I don't look or sound like these other people on the leadership board. You don't have to. You can also honor your own communication style. Maybe you're used to being in meetings where it's rapid fire, people trying to kind of prove their intelligence, and someone asks you a question. Maybe you go blank in that moment. You don't have to answer. You can say, that's a great question. I'm going to think about it and get back to you. That's especially for the introverts who may be in the audience. So another way is to really own what you know, trust that you do know more than you think you do, and you know what, do good work and make it visible. There, we can talk more about that in a little bit as well. So new slide, please. Okay, so now we're coming back to this double bind. The strategy 3 is actually 2 slides. We're going to talk about how to communicate with competence and warmth and owning your own self-authority. So what you see here are some words and speech patterns and habits that a lot of women, knowingly or unknowingly, do in their day-to-day world. So I worked at Starbucks headquarters for a while. It was mostly women. I wasn't used to that, having come from Microsoft and some other more male-dominated companies. And I remember hearing a lot of the women say, "Can I ask a qualifying question?" And in my mind, I'm like, "Why don't you just ask the damn question?" So that's what happens where there's apologizing. We say, "Can you just tell me a little bit about something?" Or you all probably know more about this than myself, or maybe you talk too much and too fast, because it can be pretty common for women to get interrupted by others. Now, there's a caveat here. It's one thing to think, oh, I'm going to take all these bullet points and start practicing the opposite so that I feel more comfortable speaking up. If you think back to the double bind and think back to feeling safe, a lot of women who actually feel very comfortable speaking up have actually trained themselves to use some of these things because it gets them better results. So my advice is to experiment with as many as you can. I like to start with email and look at your emails and say, where are you saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry to bother you"? You can just say, "Hello, I'm checking in." So there are ways to do this and start getting yourself more comfortable with dropping some of this excess safety talk. So, and if anyone has ever heard of Tara Moore in her book Playing Big, If you subscribe to her materials, she actually has a downloaded checklist for these kind of communications. So the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a stay connected. I did want to talk a little bit more about a slide that I decided not to include today. That was the warmth factor. And I'm just going to speak to that one on top of this one. But there are ways to stick up for yourself and say, like, thank you so much for that question. I have a lot of things to say about it, and I'll let you know tomorrow. Or there's ways to be kind and say like a compound sentence. And if anyone wants that slide later, you're welcome to contact me and say, I really would prefer not to do this thing that you're asking me to do. What I can do instead is. So it can probably feel like a lot of extra work sometimes to speak up and advocate for yourself as a woman in these situations, but it can be done in a way that doesn't make you feel not yourself when you walk away. So this one, okay, so the stay connected one has to do with there can be some safety in numbers. So the obvious one, build relationships, networks, allies. I've heard some great suggestions of women actually before meetings partnering with other women and saying, you know what, I'm going to ask you some specific questions, something that you can prepare for. Or I'm going to tee up a couple topics that I know you know a lot about so you can speak about. So there's some really interesting ways that you can help each other do this. Another one is seeking alignment before meetings with the people who will be attending the meetings. That's something I remember very clearly from that negotiation class at Carnegie Mellon. That maybe a lot of women don't think to do, but men often do. So by the time you go to a meeting to discuss a decision, a lot of times it's already made. And maybe that's part of the old boy network that women weren't aware of, but you can create your own. There's also something called shine theory from a great book I just started reading called Brag Better. And that's essentially like, how can you help others shine? Maybe I can see Tess offering some comments here. Maybe I'll be in a meeting and say, does everybody know this great podcast episode that Tess just launched? It's got some really interesting stuff that has to do with our clients, and we should all take a listen to it. So all of these things support being visible in ways that women may or may not be comfortable with, or feel like you're just bragging if I talk about myself. There's many ways to do that and feel more comfortable. Okay, next slide, please. Great. So this one I like to have in my strategy as well, because it's a really strong quote about doing the thing that you're afraid of. If your vision is so strong, just do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway, which is the title of a great book, by the way. And also radically accepting what happens is people, like, remember back to my broken toilet story. People may not always like it when you speak up, and please don't let it be something that just stops you forever from doing it. So you have the strength and courage to believe that what you have to say is worth listening to. So next slide, please. So this is some information on how people, if you want to know more and work with me, I actually have a specific package now on claiming your own self-authority. And I've been working with many women on doing this. In fact, it comes up no matter what topic someone comes to me for coaching, which we thought was about their career, more often than not ends up being around this topic as well. I'm love to do more workshops. I'm doing some workshops for some businesses local to Portland, Oregon this fall. Love to do it for you. And I'm also talking and thinking about doing a group coaching program for women in self-authority. And if you're interested, I would really love to know. So next slide, please. It's the last one. It's just a quick resources slide. There, great. Okay, so these are some of the books and resources I've been talking about, some of the articles and some of the books. And I've had the pleasure of being actually friends with the woman, Michelle Minikin, who wrote Good Girl Deprogramming. I got to be an early advanced reader for that. So that's great. So those are, I think, all of what I have for today. If we have time for questions, I'd be happy to respond to anything. And if not, if you can go back one slide, Thank you. So you can always scan the oops, other direction, please. Backwards. There you go. You can always scan that and that goes straight to my website. And anyone is welcome to reach out and contact me. I have my email on that in the lower left there in the bluish green as well. So great. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think we're done. Okay, Melinda, I think we're all concluded, right? Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden. Hmm. A few more technical difficulties. Okay, bye.
Hi, I can see Becky Kaplan and Melinda Roy. So I've joined, but where do I go to join? I'm already here.
You're already here.
It says recording, currently recording session, 44 minutes, but you don't see me. Why is that? Um, and I'm backstage. Becky Kaplan, here's my video. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, finally.
How?
Am I supposed to start?
1 second.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, how are you?
I am good. You are looking so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing this since yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
Right?
understand. So, thank you so much for your patience with us. So, hope you are enjoying our event. So, welcome to Global Virtual Summit 2024, Day
Thank
2. So thank you so much for supporting each and every woman in this platform. So this is a platform where all the wonderful ladies can connect and share their stories and inspire them with your personal stories or with your presentations. So each speaker has their unique way of presenting. So before you start your presentation, I would
you.
like to introduce you to the audience. Okay, give me
Okay.
1 second.
Uh,
Okay, so welcome on stage. Yes, welcome on stage. No, yeah, Michelle. So she is a certified mental wellness consultant and the founder of Leveling Up with Michelle Inc. and the co-founder of the Thrive Alliance Team program. Her passion and mission are deeply intertwined with her professional journey. With extensive experience in trauma informed care and holistic transformation, she is dedicated to empowering individuals to meet their future selves with confidence and clarity. Her impactful Meet the Future You program is designed to guide clients through a transformative process that aligns their current state with their ultimate goals and aspirations. In addition to individual coaching, she leads a variety of community based activities through workshops, retreats, and online support groups. Through the Meet the Future You program and collaborative work with the Thrive Alliance Team program, she offered a range of services that promote mental wellness, intuitive healing, and meaningful steps toward their healthier life. Her methods integrate advanced strategies in communication, nutrition, and mindfulness, which have proven essential in helping clients navigate their paths to well being. Wow, that's very inspiring. So, welcome on stage, Michelle. The stage is all yours.
no,
Good luck.
thank you very much. Thank you, Melinda, very much for letting me be here. It's a big honor to be here today. Recovery coach. What I'll be sharing today isn't just about theories or concepts, but about hard earned personal experiences that I've lived through. And now I get to help teens and women as well. So I struggled with codependency in a period of my life and deeply entrenched of the cycle of codependency. It was very, very difficult with the sacrifices, and I poured so much into people around me that I forgot about myself. It wasn't until I faced the inevitable burnout that I realized I wasn't being loving to myself. I was abandoning myself. One of the hardest things for us as women is acknowledging when a relationship has become toxic, whether it's a romantic partner, a friend, or even a family member. The lines between caring and self sacrifice often blur. I found myself in relationships where I accepted behavior I knew wasn't right. Yet I stayed because I thought it was my duty to make it work. I was trapped in a cycle of toxic love, mistaking it for loyalty. And the more I gave, the more I lost myself. It was only through the painful but necessary process of leaving those toxic relationships behind that I began to understand the power of self love. For me, this wasn't just about taking bubble baths or doing nice things for myself. It was about reclaiming my voice, setting boundaries, and learning that my worth isn't dependent on anyone else's validation. So the turning point came after I spent a long, long time in profound solitude. After that, I had cut ties with the relationships that I had clung to for years. That was my identity and my home and my family. I was alone with my thoughts, my fears, and my insecurities. It was during this time that I began to rebuild. Piece by piece, I started to discover what loving myself truly meant. Self love wasn't about being perfect. It was about accepting the imperfect and not being perfect. Messy, sometimes painful parts of myself with compassion. I had to learn to sit with my discomfort, with my own wounds, and not try to fix them by latching on to others or other things. Through that process, I found that self love became the foundation for my mental wellness. It wasn't until I loved myself that I could begin to heal from codependency and toxic patterns. When you operate from a place of self love, you no longer seek validation outside of yourself. You understand that you are worthy simply because you exist, not what you do. And then I got into entrepreneurship and I had to deal with overcoming limiting beliefs. With a newfound self awareness, I ventured to entrepreneurship and starting a new business and starting a new life, thinking my journey of healing was complete. Grief and healing is not linear. Little did I know, starting my own business would uncover a whole new layer of challenges. Get choked up, particularly around my belief programming and my programming as a child. I realized that I had internalized so many limiting beliefs from my past beliefs, like I'm not good enough, or I don't have what it takes to succeed, or you're better than me and no more. These thoughts, born from years of self doubt and toxic relationships, were still playing on repeat in my mind. It didn't matter that I had left behind unhealthy relationships, I was still carrying the baggage as if it was in real time. Entrepreneurship is much an internal battle as its external one. I had to face my inner critic, confront the stories I was telling myself, and reprogram my mind for success with the help of other women that supported me. I started to ask myself, whose voice is this? Is this really mine? Or is this the echo of someone else's insecurities from long ago and some not so long ago? Once I began to rewrite these stories, everything changed. I stopped viewing myself as unworthy and started seeing myself as capable. It wasn't easy, it was daily work, and I still work on it today. But every time I caught myself falling into those old patterns, I reminded myself that I'm an author of my life story. I have the power to change the narrative. I am the creator. The empowerment through my belief programming, NLP, I worked a lot with other coaches at school, isn't just about success in business. It's about success in every area of your life. The beliefs we hold about ourselves influence every decision we make. And most of it, 95%, is the subconscious. So we're not even knowing what's going on until we wake up. They affect how we show up in our relationships, how we pursue our dreams, and how we care for ourselves day to day. For me, the moment shifted my beliefs when I started to attracting healthier relationships and kept working on me, working on me. Then I got more aligned opportunities and a deeper sense of peace. It's not about positive thinking, it's about truth telling. I had to get really honest with myself about the lies I've been telling myself for years. I'm not good enough car, that lie. The need to be everything to everyone lie. that made me good enough when I helped you. I dismantled those beliefs one by one and replaced them with truths that aligned with the person I wanted to become. So from healing and thriving, I stand before you, not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who has been in the trenches and come out the other side. I know the pain of staying in toxic relationships far too long. And I know because you don't believe, I didn't believe I deserved better. I know the fear of stepping into the unknown, unsure if you have what it takes. I know the internal battle of trying to love yourself when you've been told for years that you're not enough, that you're not lovable, that you're dumb. But I'm also living proof that healing is possible, that transformation is possible, that thriving is possible. And the key to all of it, the thread that ties it all together, is self-love. Real, deep, unshakable self-love. So in order to embrace my power, and to all the women in this room, I want you to leave you with this. Your worth is not dependent on what you can do for others or how much you can give. Worth is not tied to anyone's approval, anyone's love, or anyone's opinion of you. It's intrinsic. It's already there waiting for you to claim it. You just may need a little help dusting it off. And there's many of us that have gone before. The journey to mental wellness, to success, and to thriving starts with you, with loving yourself enough to set boundaries, to rewrite the beliefs that hold you back, and to choose yourself every single day. And to always remember that you are not alone. We are our best resource. And it's time to go big or go home. And that's really what I want to leave you with. You're not alone. Where'd Melinda go? And I think now there's some other speakers here. I'm very confused.
Hi, Mitchell.
Hi, are you Pavan?
Sorry?
No. We haven't met yet.
Yeah, Melinda has left. Actually, it was a late hour. So I just took into consideration. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very insights, thought-provoking talk, with Mitchell. So yeah, we have a couple of questions, and I think as we are running out of the time, we will send you the questions to your email, and you can just follow up with the other attendees. Yeah. Is it okay, Mitchell?
Yeah, sure. So you want to look at the questions?
Yeah, I will pass on to your email. Yeah, as we have our.
Okay, I'm here at my email.
Okay. Could you please put it in the chat box so that all the attendees will be aware of your email?
That is here, people. Oh, messages. Got it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've received your questions yet.
Yeah, we will send it to your email, I think.
Oh, okay. So not yet.
Not yet. So we will send you your email. Okay, Mitchell. Okay.
You want me to answer them here?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was really a fabulous talk. Thank you. Bye-bye.
But okay, so I'm going now. I'm so confused.